Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Have you checked the children?
I want to play a game. The box. You opened it. We came.
Here.
This is the All-American Spookshow.
Today we are witness to the dawn of a new communications era, brought upon us by satellites, lasers, fiber optics, microprocessors, and magnetic bubbles, for the transfer of information, ideas, knowledge.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the All-American Spook Show. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donny.
Yo. And
the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
Will couldn't be with us, but he's missing an interesting one here. I'll say that. It's Cronenberg. That's all. You start there. It's Cronenberg. So
yeah, it's
gonna be weird. There's gonna be some discussion of the oddness of certain things. But it was kind of like that with The Fly. Even though The Fly was a little bit easy, I'd say a lot easier to explain what was going on in that one compared to this.
Yeah, he was making one for Hollywood at that point, right?
Yeah, that's probably about as Hollywood as he got at the time, right? With The Fly, this is like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Although this is kind of like his first big Hollywood-funded movie. But we'll get into more of that. So today we're going to be watching Donny's choice, and what was it, Donny, that you brought to it?
Videodrome from 1983.
Yeah, so it's if you've ever seen it before, you know that everything that we just said is true. This is an odd one, but we'll see what our final thoughts are on the matter further along we get here. But before we get into it like we normally do, I'll go ahead and toss out first and foremost, we are a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you have not seen Videodrome, you're probably going to go ahead and hit pause, go check it out in whatever method you have, and then come back and listen to the rest of this, because we are going to spoil it for you. And this is one I think you really need to see. For the good and the bad, you need to see it at least once, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
All right.
Also, we want you to go over to aaspookshow.com. That's the center of the Spook Show universe. From there, you can go to our YouTube channel. You can go to our Patreon, and also you can go to patreon.com/aaspookshow. We've got, at least 4 different monthly series. Well, it's 4 different monthly series on YouTube, but like one of them kind of rotate, or 2 of them rotate with one another, because we have every month you get Hammer Horror in order, and every month you get Grindhouse Gutter. But the ones you get basically every other month are Spook Show Rewind and the newest one, Video Vortex. So we encourage you to go check those out over on YouTube, and then on Patreon we have Crapsterpiece Theater. That's really the main event. We also have our video minisodes where we have the latest editions of the Library of the Professor. We do those once a month. The latest Crapsterpiece that will come out. That will come out on April 28th. I only hesitate because, thank God, I finally won one. I can take a break. So this is gonna be one of y'all steering the ship on this one, because I'm out.
Yeah,
I am out.
You're fuck it.
We're gonna be watching, or y'all are gonna be watching, Caddyshack 2. Yeah, I mean, if you're a big fan of Caddyshack, don't watch Caddyshack 2. Not quite as good, I'll say that. But yeah, if you want to hear some combination of Donny, Will, and or Smoke on that one, that will be coming at you later this month on April 28th over on exclusively to patreon.com/aaspookshow. So, all right, with that all out of the way, we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for Videodrome.
Why would anybody watch a scum show like Videodrome? Why did you watch it, Max? Business reasons. Sure. What about the other reasons?
Max Wren is a victim.
I woke up with a headache.
He has been exposed to Videodrome.
I've been hallucinating for a while, ever since...
What?
Since I first saw Videodrome.
His brain is already receiving video images. I think that massive doses of Videodrome signal will ultimately produce and control hallucination to the point that it will change human reality. Soon, his visions will coalesce and become uncontrollable flesh. Videodrome is seducing Max Wren.
Please, come to me now. Come to Nikki.
And Max Wren can do nothing to stop it.
What makes you think I need help? None of our test subjects has returned to normality.
Television can change your mind. Videodrome will change your body.
Long live the new flesh.
It will shatter your reality. Videodrome, starring Deborah Harry and James Woods. A shocking new vision from the creator of Scanners. Coming soon to a theater near you from Universal Pictures.
All right, there you go. That's a trailer for that. So, Donnie, is this the first time? I mean, I know you nominated it. Or not nominated. You put it out here, but is this the first time you watched it?
Oh, definitely not. No, I had. I mean, I had seen this probably in the '90s when I first watched it, and then recently rewatched it again within the last year. And yeah, it was just basically waiting for the right time to recommend this. And you had mentioned, well, actually, we just got back from the trailer. I was reading where a majority of the trailer was made on a Commodore 64, which, yeah,
it makes sense. If you actually see the visual of that trailer, that makes sense. And we do always, at least I always try to put the direct link to that movie's trailer that we're watching down in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, go down to the show notes. You should see a link that says, here's the trailer for this. Click on that, and that should take you to it. So if you want to actually see it instead of just hearing it, that's your option. But what about you, Smoke? This isn't the first time, right?
No, I've seen it a handful of times at least.
I think I think because this might get into our thoughts on the movie a little too soon. I'm not gonna ask this question right now, but I just want to ask it now so you can answer it later. And we'll do this at the end, so that's a tease, right?
Isn't that wait a second? No, you said I'm not going to ask this question now, but I'm asking it right now.
I'm going to ask the question just so you can think about it. Is the way I meant to phrase that. Where do you think this ranks with other Cronenberg movies? Don't answer. Just stew on that, and then we'll come back to that at the end. Hopefully, I remember to come back to that because I've done that before. Like, hey, I'm going to ask this at the end, and then I never fucking ask it. So
yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it, but. Yeah, as far as myself, I had seen this before, although it's been, it's the classic case of it's been a long time ago. I think this was like a, video store rental back in the 90s. Donnie, probably back in the days when you were working at the video store and I would come over there and rent movies. When you another friend of ours, Chris, worked at, what was it? Was that Hollywood Video?
Yeah, it was.
Because it changed names of that place a couple times, but it was Hollywood when you worked there, right?
Yeah,
I worked at a couple different movie theaters, but I never had the pleasure of working at a video store.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah. I don't have the fondest memories that I should have. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it sucks, it sucks. I'd say Smoke, as time has gone on, the whole idea of it and everything has probably been more romanticized than it was back then, right?
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, I did spend a lot. I mean, I never worked in, my love of movies and all that. It's kind of surprising, I guess, to something that I never attempted to or never worked in a video store or a movie theater.
That's crazy.
But I spent a hell of a lot of time.
I said, that's crazy. I pegged you for doing one or both at some point in your life.
Yeah.
And you might think this is a weird side trip that we're taking talking about video stores, but I think it's appropriate here for the movie that we're talking about, Videodrome, because maybe not specifically video stores, but video, beta, all that stuff plays an
formats
enormous
and things.
part of this movie, the plot of this movie, right?
Huge part, and part of the marketing and part of the artwork. For instance, the Criterion disc that I have Videodrome on and watched on the. It has a slipcase. You pull out the slipcase, and inside that, the cover of the actual, that's inside the insert in the plastic case is a insert that looks like a beta tape.
Yeah,
and it says "Long live the new flesh" like on the label.
Yeah, kind of
marketing part of the movie.
I guess kind of feeding off that beta. They use Betamax tapes because, well, at least for the, obviously throughout the whole movie they did, but the VHS tapes were too big to fit in the kind of the fake stomach that James Woods had. VHS tapes were too big.
The VCR stomach, however you want to phrase that.
Yeah, they. They used Betamax.
I guess he didn't have a side loader in his stomach there.
No, but let's go ahead and get into the background here for Videodrome. I found 2 alternate titles, and both of these actually just happen to be working titles. The first one is Network of Blood, and the second one was Zone Killer. Now, I think Network of Blood definitely would have worked, but Zone Killer, I don't know. Interesting title, but I don't know if it would have worked here for what story they were telling.
True. Or an exploitation title, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would totally be interested in a movie called Zone Killer, as far as like an old video, just something you would randomly rent. But for this movie, I don't know if that necessarily fits. But it was released February 4th, 1983. So our track record of getting pretty close to anniversaries and stuff still holds, I think. I think it's fair here because I know we're, roughly 2 months past, a little over, but still almost dead on 40-year anniversary of Videodrome. So pretty cool. It was produced by Film Plan International, Canadian Film Development Corporation, Famous Players, and Guardian Trust Company, and distributed by Universal Pictures. It was rated R, total runtime of 1 hour and 27 minutes. On IMDb, it's listed as a horror sci-fi thriller. It was filmed basically in and around different areas and studios and whatnot and locations in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, from October 19th through December 19th of 1981 for a budget of $5.9 million and went on to a worldwide gross of just $2.1 million. Now, I know this is horror and everything, but I think this would definitely fit in the cult corner, wouldn't you say, just criteria-wise?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is a bomb. And unfortunately, this was the first time, like I said earlier, that Cronenberg got like big funding, and it just did not do well. So, not that it really hurt him, I don't think too much, because this did get some critical accolades and whatnot. But it's still it's disappointing. I would assume it would have been disappointing for him at the time to finally get a big budget, and then the movie just does not do well. Here's the top 10 in the box office, the same weekend that it came out. So this is the weekend of February 4th through the 6th, 1983. And this time period, sometimes it's hit or miss whether we have the top 10, but we actually have the top 10 here. So number 10, E.T. the Extraterrestrial was still playing in its 35th week. It was still in the theater.
Imagine
35 weeks. You're knocking on a damn ear, at that point. Number 9, The Dark Crystal in its 8th week. Number 8, in its opening weekend, Videodrome. It made almost $1.2 million in its opening weekend for Universal. Number 7, Sophie's Choice. That was in its 9th week. Number 6, also opening that weekend, Without a Trace. Number 5, The Verdict. Number 4, Gandhi. That was in its 9th week. Number 3, 48 Hours. Number 2, also its opening week, so it was the big opening winner this weekend, The Entity. It made $3.6 million that weekend. And then number 1, in its 8th week, still kicking butt, Tootsie. It broke. This is the week that it broke the $100 million threshold, old Tootsie. So there's your box office snapshot for the weekend of February 1983 there. I mentioned some accolades. It won, best I can tell, 3 different awards. No Oscars or anything like that, but still won 3 awards. All there in 1984. It won the best sci-fi film for David Cronenberg won that in the Brussels International Festival of Fantasy Film, also known as BIFFF. It won the best sci-fi film, and it actually tied Smoke. I don't know if you know this title or not, with Bloodbath at the House of Death.
Yeah, I know the title. I don't know that I've ever seen it, but that's definitely a title. Once you have heard it or read it, then you don't. Then you know it. But I don't remember seeing it. No.
It's an eye-catching title. I'll tell you that. I'd definitely like to see a movie called Bloodbath at the House of Death. What about you, Donny?
Yeah, I'd be in for that.
So next week on the Spook Show, it also won Best Cinematography in Theatrical Feature for Mark Irwin. He was the cinematographer at the Canadian Society of Cinematographers Awards, 1984. And it also, David Cronenberg also won Best Achievement in Direction, so Best Director, at the Genie Awards in 1984. It was actually nominated for 7 other Genie Awards that it lost, but Cronenberg got the Genie for Best Direction, but it tied. So him and Bob Clark, ironically, another horror director, but not for a horror. Bob Clark got a piece of the award for A Christmas Story there in 1984. So that's two completely different type of flicks right there, winning a Best Director award. You got Videodrome in one hand and A Christmas Story in another.
It goes up for the viewing audience. They were screening those.
Speaking of Cronenberg, he wrote and directed this movie, so this is his baby through and through. You would probably best, The Fly, right? We did that all the way back in episode 125. But he also did such classics as Shivers, Rabid, Scanners. Scanners was probably actually his breakout film right before this one that pretty much got him the funding to do this. One note that I found, this was really interesting, and I don't know how deep in the conversations he was for this, but not necessarily to do this, but he turned down another movie and ended up doing Videodrome. The movie that he turned down, the chance to direct, Return of the Jedi.
Can you imagine?
I did not know that.
Yep.
Wow.
At least the chance to direct. Now, I'm assuming that means at the least he was on a short list of people that could have possibly directed it. But could you imagine? Cronenberg.
I can't imagine that George Lucas said, up to that point, well, he did The Brood and Scanners, maybe he'd be great for Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Not mention Shivers and Rabid,
If I had to take...
Lucas looking at that criteria and thinking that, well, here's a perfect fit for Return of the Jedi.
If I had to take a stab at what they were probably thinking there, it's probably like, let's look at some young and upcoming directors that might lend some, different kind of vision to the series here, at that point. Because
that would be an interesting, I would like to see that,
Absolutely. Yeah. What the?
Yeah.
I found that interesting. But as far as this movie itself, also Rick Baker, you can't go any further, right? Talking about this movie.
Legend.
Than talking about Rick Baker did the makeup effect. He was the makeup effects designer, kind of led the team there. But you see, obviously, you see his work throughout it. Great stuff. To me, you don't see enough of it throughout the movie, what you do see is great, I think, but you'd like a little bit more.
Yeah, it's
sporadic, spread out. The gore and the effects work, it's there, but it's not, like you said, it's not as, say, something like The Thing, for instance, where it's a bit more, throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's not wall to wall.
Yeah.
But I'd say the biggest reason that it looks as well as it does is because of Rick Baker, right?
Yeah, true. Undoubtedly.
And I think I saw, too, with him, I think he brought some people over from an American Werewolf in London to work with him on this one. It was roughly around the same time period, right? So,
yeah, more on that.
Yeah, that's another tease for later on. Cronenberg, back to him for a second. He is actually in the movie. Although you probably wouldn't know that he was in the movie. In the parts where Max puts the helmet on, that's Cronenberg sitting there with the helmet on. Basically, because James Woods was afraid he was going to get electrocuted if he put it on his head. So Cronenberg sat down and they did it with him.
All right, fine.
Yeah, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. Also, there were 3 endings that were shot. I didn't see exactly what the other endings were, But this one that we see, and we'll get to, obviously when we, start talking about the film here shortly, the one that they landed on was James Woods' idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, once we get toward the end, we can get a little bit more into at least one other kind of plot point that I saw. So this might have been one of the endings, but I never saw a definitive, like, well, here were the 3 endings. What would have happened? But I did see one that was a little more interesting. I'll say that, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. To that, it stars James Woods as Max Wren. You may know him from Once Upon a Time in America, Cat's Eye, Vampires. I believe that was John Carpenter, right? Smoke Vampires.
Yep.
Donnie, you may or may not remember that he was one of the voices in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. James Woods he's done a lot of voice work in a lot of movies, TV shows, stuff like that. But yeah.
Yep. I saw he hadn't done anything in the last few years.
I noticed that. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Like, having any issues?
Like since 2019, I was like, well, if you're stacking cash elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's done enough. I'm sure he could probably retire if he wants to. But I never saw anything about that he is retired. But he hasn't done anything. Maybe it's got something to do with COVID. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some other health issues. He just doesn't want to.
I can tell you what it might have something to do with, but. We probably don't want to go too far. I know we don't want to go too far down political paths in the show, but he's fairly outspoken.
Was there some kind of political controversy with him or something?
Yeah, I think he's pissed a little. Hollywood being as Hollywood is, I think he's pissed off some of the big wigs.
That might have done
producers and things in Hollywood.
Maybe.
That could have been.
That might.
It didn't take.
I'm not saying that's why, but
yeah, it didn't take much sometimes. Also, James Woods was nominated. Also, James Woods in his career, he's been nominated for 2 Oscars. Once for Best Actor in Salvador in 1987, and once for Best Supporting Actor in Ghost of Mississippi in 1997. So he has had some pretty big accolades throughout his career, although he didn't win either one of those, but still pretty cool. Sonia Smits as Bianca Oblivion. That's the first time we've said the word Oblivion here, but it won't be the last. She would probably best be known for, people listening to this from the movie The Pit. I think it came out right before this. But she's been in a ton. You go look at her filmography, a ton of TV shows, TV movies, stuff like that. So you probably, if you go look at that, you would probably recognize her from something you have watched on television over the last 30 years or so. Debbie Harry as Nikki Brand. Of course, she would best be known as the singer of Blondie, the lead singer of Blondie, right?
Yeah, but she's not blonde, right? They dyed her hair red.
Yeah,
I guess to so that you wouldn't immediately think Blondie.
Yeah. Although I'm sure that did help sell this movie on some level, right? Like, you put her face on it, especially at this time. And this came out, I believe, right after they probably would have filmed this around the time that Blondie was breaking up, or if they hadn't yet, it was right after. Like, this pretty much this time period was when Blondie broke up. But once again, people that listen to this show might know her. If you don't know her from Blondie or this, she was in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. I think she was in a random episode of Tales from the Dark Side, the series as well. She was in Body Bags. This was a random connection I saw. She is in the Ramones video for the song Pet Cemetery. Pet Cemetery being what we watched all the way back in episode 9, which we just did on Spookshow Rewind. So I thought that was a interesting connection. So we can tie her back to Pet Cemetery. But yeah, she's in that video for Pet Cemetery. And also, Donnie, another I only noted this because it's another random connection. She's a voice in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. So we got James Woods, who was in Grand Theft Auto GTA San Andreas, and now we've got Debbie Harry, who's in GTA Vice City. So I thought it was kind of a cool connection. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot, but that's pretty much about all I could dig up. I mean, I'm sure there's some other shit. Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to point out before we dive on in?
Yeah. Andy Warhol called Videodrome a Clockwork Orange for the 1980s, which I don't know.
I mean, I can see where he's going with that, but it's Andy Warhol.
Yeah,
he was a weird dude.
Probably something else is that, and this will probably ring true, I guess, more towards our neck of the woods because this is kind of a local character for us. But the Barry Convex was inspired by televangelist Jim Baker, which you can kind of see.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely got
a little
that.
Bit here and there.
He's definitely got that in the role. He's playing that televangelist type of.
Yeah, that sleaze.
Yeah, just
type of
on TV, give me money kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. We promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I hopped on to Audible, and I typed in Cronenberg, I only found one thing. I typed in Videodrome, nothing. So I decided just to type in video stores to see what would pop up, and of course a number of podcasts pop up. But found another couple interesting titles here. We've got The Horror Club, A Trip to the Video Store by Jeremy Campbell. That one is almost 5 hours long. This one, Donnie, this is right up your alley here, buddy. I got you one. I know you're not a big reader, but you can listen to this, all right? So I got you one. Fucked in the Video Store.
I quit. How did you know? I said I don't have the best memories, damn it. What the fuck? Shit.
Fucked in the Video Store, a rough public group sex erotica story.
Jesus.
By Allison Range. Oh, it's only 11 minutes long. So, dude, come on. You can't devote...
Nah, fuck it.
Really,
you lost me at book.
I really got to be honest with you, though. 11 minutes is about all you need, right?
Yeah, get a group together.
Yeah.
Minute apiece.
Tons of podcasts and everything. No surprise there. But if any of that floats your boat, I know Donnie's going to use up his Audible credit today on that. So
yeah.
Go to all 11 minutes.
Yeah. And you only need 5, really. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. Good Lord, that was perfect. When I saw that title, I'm like, yep, this is what we're reading. So I'm going to hop on over to IMDb, and I'm going to click on plot summary. See what pops up. Oh, Donnie. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, boy,
I see it. I'm just like, fuck, man. Is there any way I can get on here and, like, okay, can I edit that one to, like, just delete it entirely?
Nope, we're reading the whole thing. There's actually, you got the one sentence one, then there's...
Yeah.
Three others that are a little briefer, but still 2 of those are kind of long. But this one, this is the story here. So I'm going to read you the brief one, then the long one. So a programmer at a TV station that specializes in adult entertainment searches for the producers of a dangerous and bizarre broadcast. You would think
all right, let's move on.
You would think that would be enough information, but it's not. I know we have read something from old Huggo here on the on these before, and Huggo has wrote this one. Here we go. Max Wren is the president of Channel 83 Civic TV, a small television station on the UHF dial. He defends his programming of largely X-rated shows which depict graphic sex and extreme violence as a pure matter of economic survival as a small station. Behind closed doors in specific company, he would admit that he enjoys such programming, but as president will stay away from associated activities that may be dangerous for him in its purchase. His current girlfriend, radio personality Nikki Brand, who he met on a television talk show, is sexually aroused by light mutilation on her person. That despite or because her radio show is like an open-air crisis hotline. On that same talk show, the other guest via video feed was Professor Brian Oblivion, solely his stage name, who believes that television and video broadcasts will one day overtake the world as reality, which may make Max's programming in combination more dangerous. In Max's search for the next big thing in like programming already on Channel 83, Harlan, his pirater who scans satellite signals, illegally obtains a satellite feed of something called Videodrome, which depicts continual sexualized torture and murder with no storyline of which to speak. The background behind Videodrome is unknown, but believing it is that big thing for which he is looking, Max is determined to find the producers so that he can purchase it for his station. He is concerned for Nikki if she goes ahead against his warnings and wanting to appear on Videodrome, However, it does not lessen his desire to purchase it. If Max, in turn, does not heed the warning of Masha, one of his longtime show suppliers, based on what little she discovers about it, Max may discover that Videodrome is just the next but destructive step in Oblivion's prognostication. Let me turn the page. Then...
Shut up. That's all right.
That was pretty good, and that really only explained about the first 15 minutes of the movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's funny.
So, as far as like just the oddness and weirdness and everything that is this movie, where do you start?
Well, I could say right on top that this movie touches on a little bit, but doesn't go. I mean, even though it's got its moments of extremity or whatever you want to call it, is the sort of sordid subgenre of the snuff film and within horror movies and within the real world, the legacy or legends or whatever of snuff movies, whatever you want to call it. Because really, in all honesty, people have, they've heard that name, but they don't. There's really never been a true snuff movie discovered. As far as now, there's real death stuff, news footage and all this stuff. But a snuff movie is a movie that is produced by whoever it may be, for the sole purpose of torture and killing somebody and selling it to an audience or whatever. So they technically haven't really found any, or at least they haven't, FBI hasn't released any information of there being true snuff movies that exist. But that's kind of what this, I think, plays on a little bit, is that those, that whatever you want to call it, urban folklore of snuff movies that were going around at this time and before. Now, in fact, there's a movie sometime in the late 70s, I believe, called Snuff, which played with that same sort of, even more directly, of course, with that concept. So I think that's one area that maybe he was going in with. Did they even mention that at one point? I think they do mention snuff movies at some point in the movie.
I think it's like a
when Harlan
line, kind of describing it as that. But at its root, a snuff movie is basically defined as something that's basically sexualizing murder, right?
Yeah.
Torture,
and also, I think it has to have an audience, like somebody pays a producer, somebody to produce this stuff, and it's sold underground to, somebody or groups of people.
Nefarious contacts, the black, the dark web, black market,
So I think that's the whole premise of, maybe not the entire premise, but a lot of the premise of this movie is that, like, things are going this way, right? Like, violence is popular. It's ratcheting up. Like, we're working up to, like, things are getting worse and worse to the point where, like, this is like what people want. This is what they're salivating for. The rougher the better, the grosser the better, right? That's the point.
There's a quote actually in the movie. I think it's kind of interesting. It says, "I think we live in overstimulated times." I was like, "Damn, 1983 is overstimulated."
That's where it started. It probably started on a much lesser level way before that. As time goes on, it's more and more, call it acceptable, call it just talked about, right? Like, because it was probably a time period where people have always done things like that and probably just nobody talked about it, kind of thing. But now, as time is going on, right, it's people talk about it now, as opposed to it's just like this hidden thing that five rich dudes trade tapes amongst each other. Now there's a whole dark web and everything of shit like that now, right?
Yeah, but like, even like in the movie itself, Harlan describing this, the snuff movie, he's desensitized to it, and you can tell him because he just nonchalantly talks about it.
Yeah,
and
the whole premise of this channel that he runs is Civic. It's called Civic TV, and the tagline that they say in there, Civic TV, the one you take to bed with you. So like they're all in on the sexualization of everything. More brutal the better. So like that's what he's selling here, and then he just, like that long description that we just read, he gets gets sucked into the world, right?
Yeah, and then here's another thing too, is that I guess they do a little things a little different in Canada, but I know here in America at that time you aren't going to be able to tune into any kind of TV signal and get this type of programming, whether it's UHF or not.
Well, apparently there was some basis of that. There was in Canada. In the late 70s, there was I want to say there was a channel up there that he modeled this Civic TV on called City TV. And basically City TV was known for basically showing like softcore porn and stuff at late night. And they had a late night block called the Baby Blue Movie. And that's
so they did do things differently. Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because this is like late 70s, early 80s, I assume, sometime in that time frame when he saw this, and then like that's kind of one of the ideas for the movie. But yeah, like they show. I'm assuming it's probably something similar to say like what we probably saw growing up on Cinemax, Showtime, like late night. The joke Skinemax, right? Like that late night, after midnight type stuff. You're gonna see it ain't full on porn, but it's porn enough, I'm assuming that's kind of what they ran, but maybe it was harder. I don't know, but I guess he just took that idea and ran with it. Like, what if there was a channel that was like, you know what, this is what they sell, and then let's go. I did find I find it interesting that like the scenes where they're in that TV station and they're walking around and there's posters and shit on the wall. I'd love to see like some of the real. I like to see some of that stuff that was in the background. I can't give you an example of some of those posters, but some of those I was looking at them like that would be an interesting TV show or movie if that were real kind of thing. Obviously, they're all just made up for the movie, but it would be interesting if these things existed.
Yeah.
Because they definitely looked like 80s video movies is what it looked like in TV shows and stuff. So they nailed that aesthetic. But they made this in 1981, so that makes sense. What did y'all feel about like how he's introduced to Nikki and then like how she's into mutilation sex and all that stuff? Like she pretty quick, like you can tell, like she gets off on like just that, right? Just being like, what is it? What are they doing there? Is he piercing her ear and then they're having sex as he's piercing her ear? Like it's some low level fuckery here, right?
Well, the first thing she says is, "Oh, you got your Swiss Army knife. I want you to pull it out and just cut me a little bit right here." And then she pulls her hair back, and she's already shows scabs where she's been cut 3 or 4 times.
And he's kind of like, "Yeah, you're just joking." No, for real. What? But then, like, cut to him piercing her ears while he's having sex with her.
That also, I'm guessing I watched the Criterion, so it was the uncut version. I don't know if where y'all watched that or whether it was the R-rated, the theatrical cut or unrated or whatever, but that was a little bit of an extended scene there. I guess the ear piercing was trimmed a little bit in the R-rated version where it didn't show it going all the way through. I don't know that. I mean, I would assume that Blondie's ears were already pierced and they were just pushing it through the hole that existed with some fake blood. I mean, but I didn't really read into that.
I would assume so, but yeah, who knows? I'm sure even just for make-believe's sake, there was probably some weird shit going on in this set. It's a weird Cronenberg movie. Surely there was some weird shit going on some level during the production.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Professor Brian Oblivion. How awesome of a name is that?
Yeah, and like we didn't talk about this on the show. We talked about it off air, didn't we? Or maybe we did mention at the beginning of the show, but it's spelled Oblivion with a my middle name O'Neill has O and an apostrophe and Oblivion, right?
Apostrophe Oblivion. At least they kind of scrubbed the stupidity of it off real quick, where he's like, "Of course, that's not my real name. I only use that for television purposes or whatever that whatever
stage name."
Yeah, stage name. But at least they like, okay, that's a dumbass name. But then they're like, well, at least they explained why he's got a dumb name, right?
Yeah.
So you fast forward a little bit further in the movie, and you realize that this character, this guy, Professor Oblivion, actually has been dead for like 11 months. He's been dead, and basically his daughter, what's her name, Bianca Oblivion, has been keeping him alive through like every interview he does. Like he's on a television because you saw that earlier in the film and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's some weird moments, but I don't think you really get into the weird until he pulls out a gun and sticks it in his stomach. Right? And I'm not talking like he takes a gun like, I'm going to shoot myself. No, he literally like feeds his stomach. Like, no. There's just like a sideways like cut, like a slit that goes like, say, north to south. right in the middle of his stomach, and he just sticks his hand down in there when he's got the pistol in his hand, and then just it pulls his hand out, and the gun is gone. Like,
no pistol, and then he's looking around like he hallucinated or something, that his stomach was that way, and he's looking for the gun in the couch cushions and all that stuff.
I think that was the moment where it started to really get weird. Like I said, there was a lot of weird shit, right? Moments, brief moments, but that's like, okay, what the hell is going on here? I'm surprised, like the business name Spectacular Optical hasn't become more of a thing. I know it's generic as hell right now. I guess that's the point, but I'm surprised it hasn't become more of a thing. Like you see shirts, like, at horror conventions and shit that say, and I'm sure they exist, right? But Spectacular Optical or something like that. It just seems like people grab onto the more obscure things about horror movies and stuff like this, that would become a thing.
Or like what was the name of the other building? The Cathode Ray Ministries?
Yeah, yeah. It was like the Cathode Ray Mission or something like that.
Yeah,
Mission.
Cathode Ray Mission.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These days, like people would be like, "What the hell's a cathode ray?"
Yeah. That's another thing too. There's a lot of current times, I guess you can put it, modern day similarities to the themes of this movie, isn't there? Like, just coincidentally, but like, just replace certain elements like the cathode ray and TV obsession with like social media and streaming and stuff, right? Like you just push it to 40 years to today, and like a lot of what the themes they're dealing with, talking about here are, things that we're talking about and dealing with today, right?
Yeah, look at the metaverse thing and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, still relevant.
Mm-hmm. Very, very relevant.
And of course, AI, that too.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that. Yeah.
And of course, everybody's got the stomach slits. That's a thing now.
Yeah. Well, about that. I just the other day I watched Jaws 4 on mine.
Well, that's a nice place to put it. Most people put that one up their ass.
It comes out at the end and think it's all good. It comes out where it deserves to come out. Yeah.
So he meets this guy Barry Convex, and then Convex has him put on a helmet because he wants to monitor Max Wren, and then he starts dreaming, right, when he puts the helmet on, and in the dream he starts whipping a TV. Like, it's like he's in Videodrome. And in Videodrome, the snippets that you see up to this point, there's like this weird clay wall in the background, and people are basically being like tortured and killed in these videos. Well, now all of a sudden he wakes up, he's in it, and he's like, there's a TV there, and he starts whipping it because I think he sees Nikki in the TV, right? Debbie Harry's character.
Yeah.
And he starts whipping it, and then all of a sudden it turns into the lady, Masha. That's like his, the lady that acquires his weird TV shows for him for the network. She's in there, and then he wakes up, and all of a sudden she's in the bed, like bound and dead. So he calls his buddy Harlan, who's the guy that like pirates these TV streams for the satellite streams or whatever for the network. He calls him over. It's like, just go in there and check it out. Sure enough, it's not there. Right. So this is where like you got to figure like either somebody's in on the gag or he's really just seeing shit, but turns out like this is kind of like, what's your read on this movie, Smoke, as far as like, is he really hallucinating, or are these things really happening, or is it just like a group of people like gaslighting this dude into thinking he's crazy and seeing things to get him to do stuff? I mean, what do you think?
If I'm just knowing Cronenberg and how he generally writes, I'm thinking it's more along the lines of a hallucinatory body, because he does body horror.
Yeah.
That it's not so much being manipulated by a group of people. I mean, even though that's kind of plays into it a little bit, but I still think it's an actual thing that's happening to him, combined with hallucinations, like he's seeing it. But again, I think it's actually, some of the stuff is happening to him physically, like the stomach thing and all that. Even though it starts out as sort of a hallucination, and he does hallucinate at various points, like when he thinks remember the scene where he thought he saw Deborah Harry's character come to his apartment. Well, really, it's the girl that he works with or whatever, and he thinks he slaps her because it's Deborah Harry, and she would want that anyway, right? And then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I slapped you, or I hit you." And he goes, "What? You didn't hit me?" So I think it's manipulating his mind to where he is hallucinating certain things, but I think some of it is also physically happening to him as well. And in the end, there's a whole. Well, we'll get to that point. Won't get to that. We'll go too far ahead yet.
Yeah.
Like what I understood it to be was like the Videodrome signal is actually causing a tumor, or like causing his hallucinations.
So it's,
like
if you had a tumor, you'd probably hallucinate these things. So, and so based on that, they are able to take advantage of that and get him to do things they want him to do. Like, for instance, kill a little bit here in a minute. You see a little further along in the movie when he walks into the network office, his partners, and then he just shoots them both. Mm-hmm. Basically on the command of like the Videodrome or whatever it was that told him to do that, right? He just goes in there and does it. So is this something where like the signal causes a tumor that makes you hallucinate, and these hallucinations tell you to do things that they want you to do? I mean, is that what you're seeing here, you think?
I would say, yeah. I would say because
not everything is a hallucination is my point, right? Like some of it is, but some of it ain't. So is that what you're saying, Smoke? Like these things are making him do things they want him to do for whatever reasons they have, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think they're guiding him and everything, but and I think he is hallucinating. Like you said, it's a tumor, but it's a tumor that's being caused by this Videodrome, the instrument, or whatever. But for certain things, I don't know, like the stomach thing.
Do you think that's real?
I think it's causing more than just a tumor. I think it's causing other body manifestations like that to happen. And also another thing that you could be thinking of there is that Cronenberg might be leading you down these paths to get you to think different. It was ahead of its time, so to speak, for that time period. Nowadays, directors do it all the time to try and not make everything like cookie cutter for you, to sort of give you something to talk about, to feed on, to say, was it this way? Well, some person says it's this, and the other person thinks it's that. So I think he's sort of leading you on to give you the viewer to kind of come to their own conclusion, I guess. But I still think it has to do with hallucinations and with this thing causing bodily manifestations to happen, like tumors in the brain or these other, if you want to call them tumors, whatever's going on with the stomach thing and all that. I think that was kind of happening because you have that guy, you have a convex, the thing that happens to convex, because what was that? Was that a hallucination, or was he or did that happen?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
You mean what eventually ended up happening to convex?
Yeah.
Yeah, he walks in on like convex is like having like a seminar meeting, whatever this is, like a convention, seminar, or whatever, and he shoots him, and then the dude basically he just melts, right?
Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, but like my description doesn't do it justice. You have to see it, but the way he just like, goes and melts and everything, it's pretty good. When or a little bit before that though, when convex basically you find out that his guy Harlan, Max's guy Harlan, is in with convex, he's in with whatever this is. And then convex puts a tape in Max's stomach, like that slit in his stomach. Like, that's where I'm thinking, like, this is like it's like, here's your instructions, right? This is what I want you to do. I want you to kill this person or do whatever it is I want you to do. So I'm going to take this tape and I'm going to insert it in your stomach. But, like, maybe that's just what he is thinking is happening, right? Like, in reality, they're just feeding him these hallucinations to get him to do what they want him to do. But like in his head, he's thinking like he has this little thing in his stomach. They put it in there, like, now you have your mission, go kind of thing. It's fucking weird. And it's hard to explain really without seeing it. But then
because the other part is, you're about to get to it, I think.
Well, I was going to say,
you might be.
Well, he puts the tape in there and he's got the idea to go do something or whatever, but then he kind of rejects it. He starts to reject the idea of it. Right. And he actually goes to Bianca Oblivion, who helps him kind of break the hold that Videodrome has on him, but he reaches into his stomach. Remember the gun thing earlier, and pulls out the gun. So it's like the gun was stowed away in his stomach this whole time. But then it becomes
that's what I was mentioning about the gun next, because then it also mutates into his hand, right?
Yeah,
like very cyberpunk style.
It's like it becomes a part of his hand. Like all of a sudden he has a gun, like a slimy reptilian gun hand. And not long after that's when you get the quote, "Death to Videodrome, long live the new flesh." Because that's right after Bianca is able to help break the hold that Videodrome has on him. And that's that's kind of the quote, and you get it again toward the end. But I guess between what he does with Convex there, I think that's the final blow. But right before that, when he takes out Harlan, he just blew him up.
Yeah, he's just full body explosion. Although not as maybe when you say that you expect like guts and everything flying everywhere. It's not quite as spectacular of an explosion as his prior movie was for the explosion in Scanners. That's still a cool effect, but that one I expected that one to be a bit gorier when that happened. And,
but it happens.
He blows up, but it's not. You don't see blood flying everywhere.
But it happens.
Yeah, I was
after,
a little disappointed with that one.
Harlan sticks his hand in his stomach, bites his hand off, and then it's how that happened. I don't know. Right. And it made him like it was a weird hand nub.
It was a weird shape.
Yeah,
it was like
it was like this, like a machine gear type of thing. But then it got skinny, and then there's his arm. So it was kind of a weird...
It was like honestly, it kind of looked. And this is what I thought when I initially saw it. But in American Gladiators, the joust sticks. I was like, oh bloody, yeah, American Gladiators. That was
the bloody nub version of it.
Yeah, the bloody nub.
But that makes him fall to the ground and scream and then blow up. So it is a true what the fuck moment. But then in the end, Nicky appears on the TV because he goes to this like derelict abandoned ship out on like the locked up shipyard somewhere on the other side of Toronto or something, and there's a TV in there apparently, or at least in his head or something, right? He's just sitting there. Nicky appears on the TV and basically tell him like, you need to shoot yourself to take the next step in Videodrome. Like, you've come this far, but now you need to go to the next level. And then it kind of shows him, right? Like, this is what you need to do. And then damn if he just doesn't just fucking do it. Like, note for note, like does exactly what he just saw. And then long live the new flesh, puts the gun to his head, pow. The end. Right? Credits. So
yep.
It is interesting. It is interesting to say the least. Now, we've talked a lot about the themes and whatnot, and we've talked a lot about Cronenberg, but I'm going to go back to the question I asked you guys earlier. Where do you think this ranks as far as like the Cronenberg movies that you saw, that you've seen? And I mean, obviously we've only done one other one with The Fly, and personally I like The Fly better than this, but
same.
I mean, just apples to oranges. But what do you say, Smoke? I mean, you might have seen more Cronenberg movies than I have, so where do you think this one lands?
I think as far as his classic output of let's just stop with the 80s. If we're just talking about from 70s to 80s, I think it's up there as far as his like Cronenberg fans, let's say. It's up in there. The Fly, that's also depending on, like you said, apples and oranges. The Fly is a very much more well-produced Hollywood-style movie. I mean, it's got more production in it. I mean, he probably had more producers on his back than were having him put out a certain type of movie where it's not going to get too crazy and too weird. And he's doing a remake anyways, and he's got Jeff Goldblum, he's got Gina Davis, so he's got bigger names maybe he's working with. So you could compare it with that, but I would say compare it with his less Hollywood movies, such like Scanners, Dead Ringers, Rabid. What was his first movie?
Well, Rabid
can't think of Shivers.
Yeah, Shivers. Yeah, I was going to say Rabid was an early one, but it wasn't his first.
Yeah, Rabid was the second one, I believe. Shivers was the first one, but I think it kind of falls around, say, Scanners. And personally, I like Scanners a little bit better than this one. I mean, just a little bit as far as the concept, like the whole psychic concept, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it still ranks up there pretty high as far as his 70s, 80s output. For that time period, it was probably, I mean, The Brood is great too, though. I mean, really, I think, let's just take those three movies and we'll maybe throw in Dead Ringers. If I had to sit right here and rank them without watching them all again recently, I would say, for me personally, probably would be The Brood, Scanners, Videodrome, and then Dead Ringers. Now, I'm leaving The Fly out because I just put The Fly in a different league, a different type of movie or whatever. So it's kind of hard for me to rank The Fly with all his other movies because it's so different for his style.
One could argue too that like that might be his best movie, The Fly. Would you go that far?
I would definitely say that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great script. It's a great remake, but in that it's not the same as the original. Like he takes it and does his own thing with it, and it's still very Cronenbergian, because he's still got his body horror stuff in there, and it makes it so much more different than the original. That's his own thing. So it's also one of my favorite remakes as well. I forget where we ranked remakes at one point. I think I had it on my list. We probably all did, maybe.
Yeah.
In some capacity, but yeah, so yeah. For that, I'll leave The Fly out of it, and I just kind of rank it against his other movies from the time period. So I'd say it's number 3 for me from his movies from the 70s and 80s.
Well, Donnie, you're the one that brought this to the table, so I'm going to let you eat first. What do you say as far as the star rating is concerned?
Oh man, oh man. It's
a tough one to compare to some of the stuff we've done.
It is. But no, definitely plenty of what the fuck moments.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still enjoyable. I mean, that's part of what makes it enjoyable. I do wish there was, more gore. But still, as it sits, practical effects always gonna, win me over. This is no exception here. I'm gonna go 3.5.
Smoke, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree with everything Donnie just said, and and for the same thing, it could have been a little bit gorier and throughout the whole thing. It's got its moments for sure. You're dealing with the subject matter that you're dealing with, which is kind of an extreme subject matter when it comes to like the snuff aspect and all that stuff. And like I said, that body explosion. There was so much potential for that to be we'll get to what we think is our best kill in the movie, but there was so much potential for that to be maybe one of, or for him to up the ante on his prior movie Scanners when he had that fucking awesome head explosion. Probably, arguably, maybe the best head explosion in horror movies. I mean, that's, like I said, it's arguable. I don't know. There's a couple more that I could rank in there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe they juiced up the gore even a little bit more, I got a little bit higher. But I'd echo Donnie's. I think 3.5 is good.
I echo a lot, of what you guys have said about it, but I don't know if I can go quite 3.5. I'm going to go 3. It's still a lot of fun. I think it's helped by the fact that it's not very long. I think if it had been any longer, I don't know if I'd have liked it quite as much. There are some moments where it drags, but it gets to the point, you're trying to figure out what's going on. And then once you start to understand it, they kind of, you're getting towards the end, so I think it's paced pretty well. If it had been, 10, 15 minutes longer, I don't know if I'd have enjoyed it quite as much, unless it had more gore. I echo what you guys said about that, as far as like, I wish it had a little bit more. You got Rick Baker, let's squeeze some more
showcase.
Juice. Yeah, let's squeeze some more juice out of that.
Definitely.
I'm not saying what they did wasn't great, because it was. It just wasn't quite enough of it. So that's why I have to, knock it just a little bit. But still, it's a great movie. It's one that, I've watched a time or two, and, I definitely would watch it again. So I think overall, I think we all pretty much agree for different reasons. And right now, as we sit without Will's rating, of course, we sit at 3.3 stars. That's the consensus score, which I think, fairly, percentage-wise, fairly jives with what you'll see on your critic aggregates and whatnot, and your audience totals. IMDb gets 7.2 out of 10 stars. Over on Metacritic, it gets a Metascore of 60. That's out of 100. So that percentage-wise, right, that pretty much jives. And then over on Rotten Tomatoes, it actually gets a tomato meter score of 80%, certified fresh. And that's quite a bit of what, as of right now, 56 critic reviews on there. And the audience score is the exact same thing, 80% audience score. So I think overall, it all jives. Like, it's a weird body horror type of movie, but as far as weird body horror movies are concerned, it makes sense, and it's well done. Because some of these movies tend not to make sense. And it's like, for instance, I guess Street Trash, I'm just thinking of body horror type gross out shit. It makes sense, but in a different kind of way, right? Like, this is more of like you're this is thinking man Street Trash, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if you're talking about, and if you want to see some body horror that takes it to the level of like, what in the absolute hell is going on here? We haven't even touched on any Japanese cyberpunk body horror like Tetsuo, which takes a lot of the same themes from that's going on in this movie. It takes blasts them into the stratosphere.
Yeah, now you're getting into the culture differences with that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like there are certain themes that like maybe us in America, like what the fuck is going on here, that say a Japanese audience might understand better than we do, kind of thing. You know, that just might be a cultural divide thing. But yeah, I think overall, we agree with the critics and the audiences with that. So, we're not done just yet though. Before we put a bow here on Videodrome.
Connections from the crypt.
Gotta let it finish. All right, so so we're connecting this current episode by any cast and crew connections to past Spook Show episodes. So with Videodrome on the cast side, Leslie Carlson, who plays Convex. He was also in Black Christmas, and he was in The Fly. And then you mentioned Rick Baker. He was makeup effects legend, obviously. You'd mentioned An American Werewolf in London, which we did back in Summer of the Wolf last summer when we did those episodes. And then also The Howling.
Now, Will is not here to give us the kill count, but I think we kind of roughly came up with a number of about 7.
Yeah.
We won't call that the official number until Will says it, but I think roughly that's what it was. So, but point is, we're not doing the breakdown of the kills, but that leads us to possibly the best one. Let's talk about the kill reel.
Highlight kill.
All right, so this is somewhat left up to me. I mean, we do talk about it a little bit, but I think we all agree. If I'm not getting it mixed up, I believe it was the Convex killing at the end, right? The last big kill of the movie. I think that one's the best. The one that you're probably going to take away. What are you going to take away from this movie other than like the stomach slit stuff, right? Right.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
the things that
there
you're gonna
has to
remember.
be.
Yeah.
There has to be a gripping death scene where you're just like, oh,
yeah,
shit.
the highlight.
Like,
I think that is the highlight kill, in my opinion. I think that's the one. Although the Harlan one, where his stomach bites off his arm and he's got the weird nub and then he basically blows up. That one's a close second. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Convex death as the highlight kill. So that naturally takes us to
Gore score.
Yeah, we've talked about it. It is the juicy one, but and we also mentioned that it could have gone even further. But with what is there, Rick Baker did an amazing job on the effects, as we also mentioned. As you just mentioned, the best kill, Convex is juicy kill with basically almost like a meltdown, where his internals are also exposed and everything. And I mean, it's just pretty gruesome. Harlan, yeah, it started out gruesome with his hand getting in the stomach hole or whatever, and then coming out with the nub / whatever is on the end of his hand.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk thing, whatever. But and then he blows up, but not so explosively graphic and gory and like guts flying or anything like that. One scene where guts do fly though is out of the TV, right?
Oh yeah.
The scene where the TV just explodes and like these giant intestine looking things come flying out of it. There's plenty of gore in the movie. It's just not prolonged throughout beginning to end. It's kind of spread out sporadically in spurts, no pun intended, here and there. Now, as everybody that's been watching the show would know by now, if you've been watching every episode, that the gore score is based on Chaz Balin's gore score in his Deep Red magazines and the Deep Red Horror Handbook, etc. And this one he did give a rating for, and I will diverge from it just a little bit. It's he gave it a 9 on gore score. I mean, in here it's sort of it's subjective for sure. The scenes that are there are very gory. I mean, they're more graphic than your average R-rated movie at the time, that's for sure. But as we said, they're just not prolonged throughout the whole thing, I don't think. So I'm gonna diverge from it a little bit, and I'll give it a 7. Gore department. I think it definitely deserves that. But I think it's just like as we said, it's not prolonged throughout the whole movie, but what is there is pretty graphic. So
I guess that'll pretty much wrap it up here for Videodrome. I think we've said all that needs to be said. You know, one thought I had when you brought up Harlan again just now, the weird shape of his hand, right? The nub. I was just thinking, like, what the hell does that look like? And then maybe I'm totally off base here, but it almost looks like, now that I was thinking about it, like a coax cable. Like, right? Like,
man,
like he's jacking into the Matrix or the video.
That
right?
makes more sense than the fucking American Gladiators joust. Pugilistic.
I don't know, like I said, maybe I'm way off, but it just occurred to me. I was like, what does it look like? Oh shit, you know, maybe.
Kind of does look like
maybe,
coax.
Maybe like an old '80s coax cable type of hookup. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe somebody out there in Spookshow land knows. Yeah, that's the flux capacitor. You know, what the hell's wrong with you guys? Maybe you know. Send us a note. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So next week we will actually be doing our next Spookshow spotlight. We haven't done one in a little while, it seems like. But we're going to be focusing in on the career up to this point of the great director and producer Sam Raimi. We've recently done The Evil Dead. We have done the Evil Dead 2, right? And we are on the precipice the next week of doing the Evil Dead remake from 2013. Now we haven't been able to fit Army of Darkness in there yet, but I'm sure we'll get to it sooner rather than later. But we figured it was a good time to stop and, you know, really take a deep dive and talk about Sam Raimi and everything that he's done up to this point in his career. So, very justified Spook Show Spotlight episode that we'll be doing next week. So you want to keep your eyes out for that. And then, like I said, the following week, episode 157, we'll talk about the Evil Dead 2013 remake, reboot, however you want to phrase it. We'll finally get to that one. So a little bit of a Evil Dead month, and that all kind of coincides with right along the same time frame. I can't remember the exact date. If any of you guys know offhand, the Evil Dead Rise is about to hit theaters. So
April.
I want to say maybe the 21st. For some reason, that's random.
Yeah, sounds right. That sounds
so
because I know it was while I'm on vacation.
Yeah, so not this week, but next week, April 21st, Evil Dead Rise will hit theaters. So we figured it was an appropriate time, if for no other reason than that, to talk about Sam Raimi. Obviously, he's involved there. This is his puppy, and then we're going to talk about the Evil Dead remake right after that. So, little mini Evil Dead month going on here in the month of April.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, I guess we'll leave it there. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donnie, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next week.